This podcast contains detailed plot spoilers, adult language, and mature themes. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to a podcast of rare antiquities. Today we are tackling a hockey comedy from Canada, Goon. I am your host, Geoff.
Oh baby, oh golly, oh Dougie. This is Harry.
Hey man, well, welcome back to the show. I'm going back to Canada. How you been?
Good. Getting actually more into the spirit of things. I mean, it's serendipitous in a sense. You picked this one. I haven't had a lot of time for hockey in the past two and a half years. So just starting to get back into the rhythm of things, playing hockey, watching hockey. So it feels good to be back in the swing of things in that aspect as well. So it was kind of good timing for this one. And I'm ready to roll here. Ready to spit some chiclets. So let's roll.
Well, and spit some chiclets we shall. Had you come across this movie before? You heard of it? Ever seen it before?
No, I heard of it for sure. I knew of its existence. I just never got around to watching it. Yeah, it was on my radar. It's just always again, last couple of years been too busy I can't remember when this was released, but last couple of years just too busy for me. I didn't really watch too many movies that were outside of our podcast, so just kept missing the boat. So glad we got around to this one for the podcast.
Yeah, no, me too. I heard of the film. I'd always just kind of written it off as some stupid, goofy comedy with Sean William Scott, and I never gave it another thought. I'd heard a couple of good things about it in the last few months on a couple other podcasts that I listened to, which I won't mention here because fuck them. But one guy said it was the best sports movie he'd ever seen. I'm like, all right, well, it's a hockey movie. I got to watch it now. So
best sports movie he's ever seen.
That's what he had said. Yeah.
That's a bold statement.
It is a bold statement, and it is a hard genre to master because the sports, depending on what sport you choose, you get a completely different show on your hands just with the sport itself and all the culture that surrounds every sport. Hockey's certainly got a special place in my heart, and I know it does for you as well. So I maybe felt a little too protective of it and wasn't willing to check out a movie about the greatest game in the world.
I agree. So I don't want to interfere with your flow, but that's what I always do. I interfere because you kind of talked about the guy said greatest sport movie of all time, and you're going to have to tell me who that is after the podcast. So what is your favorite sport movie of all time, excluding this movie?
Well, I don't have a great breadth of knowledge with the genre of sports movies. I don't watch a lot of them. And I tend not to take it too seriously, but my favorite sports movie is The Replacements, starring Keanu Reeves and Gene Hackman.
Oh, man. My wife, Julie, will love you for that pick. It's a good movie. It's one of our favorites because that was, I think, our first date.
Oh, really?
Wow, yeah, I took her to The Replacements.
That's so good. It's such a good movie. It has such a good trailer, too. I love the trailer for that movie.
Yeah, it's a funny movie, too. I really enjoy it. I think that's a good one. Anything else on your radar for sports movies, or?
No, I don't. No, that's it. I'm not a big fan of anything else that I can think of. Yeah, that's the one. Like, not unless you count Kickboxer, but I don't think that counts.
Well, I guess, okay, so then I don't know if my pick is going to count because mine's Rocky, but
yeah, Rocky.
But is it a drama? Is it a love story? Is it a sport movie? Kind of all combined into one?
Yeah, I guess you could get away with that. I guess so. Yeah, and a great example of one, perhaps, too. But it's just a little bit outside
the actual sports movie. Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. It's more drama than anything else. Another one, I guess, and my wife, she loves Mighty Ducks. So, the Flying V.
Well, it's got its place, I suppose.
I'll take Mighty Ducks 3 or whatever it was, or is it another one of those Slapshot sequels where Gilmore was a cameo? I'll take that one. That's my favorite of all time.
Oh, man. Yeah, see, I think Slapshot is a hugely overrated film. It's way overrated, man. I think people who really like it don't really understand hockey all that well, but that's just one man's opinion.
Okay, that's interesting. How about Field of Dreams? Again, kind of on the cusp of a different genre altogether.
Yeah, it's hard to say that's a sports movie. A good movie, though. Field of Dreams is really good. But yeah, is it a sports movie? I don't know. It feels like it's something else.
Well, how about Miracle? I never saw it. Did you ever watch Miracle?
I have seen Miracle. And yeah, that is a pretty solid film. It's about the Americans. So, I don't know. But, no offense to American hockey fans out there, certainly a great moment in that country's hockey history. And it is a good movie, and I love Kurt Russell. So it's exciting. It's well made. I've actually always wanted to see Mystery Alaska, speaking of hockey movies, but I've never got around to that one.
Yeah, I've seen that one. It's not very good. After Gladiator came out, I went into a bit of a Russell Crowe binge because I was just fascinated with him because of that movie. And I started renting some other ones, and I remember renting Mystery Alaska. Oh, man, it fucking sucked. And it's so funny because you know how the actors on skates,
yeah,
and they're like doing, is this like even in Mighty Ducks with, what is it, Emilio Estevez?
Yeah.
You can see him when he's starting to glide, gets on the ice, and he takes 2 strides, and it looks like he can barely stand, and then they do a far cutaway shot, and then he's doing all these Sidney Crosby moves on the ice, and it's like, yeah, that's not Emilio Estevez. Same thing happened with Mystery Alaska. I don't understand why people want to do. They obviously know they can't skate, so why do you want to be in a hockey movie?
Yeah, you got to have a stunt double for pretty much every single shot of you performing that sport. Like, you can't fake it. Any other sports movie you can run, and that's easy.
Right, exactly.
So you know what was a good sports movie? And fuck it, since we're on the topic, and speaking of Kevin Costner, is For Love of the Game.
Is that a golf one? Or
no,
baseball?
That's baseball.
Oh, okay.
It kind of takes place during the last game of his career, and he's pitching a no-hitter. And then as the game goes on, he's like reminiscing back on his life and his career.
Okay, another one. And I believe I brought this on the podcast one time. Have you ever seen The Natural with Robert Redford?
Natural. No, I've never seen The Natural. No.
Oh, maybe that's going to be one for the podcast one day. I'll put that in the back pocket.
All right. But let's get back to the ice and back to Goon. Any opening thoughts before we drop the puck?
No, all the thoughts will bring itself to fruition as we go through the movie. So hit us up with the synopsis.
All right, Goon. It's time for puck drop. And as the first period gets underway, we see there's a bum out there on the ice who can't skate, can't handle the puck, and has no idea about how to play hockey. Except for the part when if someone body checks your teammate, you speed bag his face until it explodes into purple goo. He gets that part really well. That man is our first star of the game. Number 69 in your programs. Number 1 in your hearts. Doug Glatt. From his humble beginnings as the adopted son of a rich white Jewish doctor to his career as a bouncer, Doug comes to you with iron fists and a skull so thick he'd need that space drill from Armageddon just to clean his ears. Doug starts the second period on the power play. His new career as a hockey enforcer is making him the talk of the minor leagues. He meets a pretty girl and begins to bring together the motley crew of hockey misfits that are his teammates. But just when he thought he was taking a big lead into the third, he finds himself killing off a few double minor penalties. As he discovers his parents disapprove of his new job, his lady friend already has a boyfriend, and the skilled player he was brought in to protect thinks he's just a fucking goon, which he is. It's the title of the movie, folks. Forced to play defense to start the third period, Doug does what any self-respecting hockey player does in the face of adversity. He punches that face over and over again until everyone loves him and he finally proves his worth to himself, gets the girl, and probably gets some CTE to go along with it. The end. So there we have it. There's Goon, Harry, in a nutshell. So
very concise.
Yeah, well, after last time, I thought we should do every synopsis to the tune of Mandy, but that was proving to be a little too difficult. So.
I would like to see that attempt done on this movie.
It would have been a tough bit to pull off episode after episode. So
no, that was good, to the point. Yeah, but it's hard to, obviously, I think you also sum up a lot of what this movie is. It's just about a who goes out there and punches people. There's a little bit more to this movie, but really that's the focus. Yeah. And that's it. There's not much more here. The focus is, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's not like a David Lynch film, or it's not The Manchurian Candidate. There aren't twists and turns here. It's about as simple as it gets, and it's just about this one guy and playing hockey. But you know what? Every once in a while, I appreciate some a little bit easier to digest films. So I'm going to hit you up with some trivia here.
Sure.
So let's talk a little bit about film here. So obviously starring Seann William Scott as Doug Glatt, goes without saying, best known for playing Stifler in the American Pie series. I was not a huge fan of his, I really like American Pie, or I liked American Pie at the time. It's a problematic film, but he was kind of known for playing that cocky douchebag type character. He's had some other good roles in there, but obviously he's the biggest name here. Jay Baruchel plays his best friend, Pat. Jay is fairly well known in Hollywood. He's kind of part of the Seth Rogen clan there. Jay is Canadian, born in Ottawa. Started making movies in Hollywood in the mid-2000s, but still finds his way to Canadian cinema. So he's kind of the one that brought this film to the forefront. It's based on an autobiography, and he wanted to adapt it, so he co-wrote this script with his longtime collaborator, Evan Goldberg, who's also kind of part of the Seth Rogen group, who's also Canadian, by the way.
Is Seth Rogen Canadian, or is
Seth Rogen's Canadian? Yeah, he's Canadian. Yeah. I like Seth Rogen. I don't always like his movies. You know?
Yeah, I like Seth Rogen. I mean, I like one or two of his films, and I'd say that's about it. I like him in certain roles, but we'll leave it at that.
I really liked Green Hornet, which is maybe an interesting choice. But anyway, I kept getting drawn to the actress who plays Eva, Alison Pill. I could not place her face to the whole movie. Couldn't find her. But she's also Canadian, from Toronto. She actually has a very robust acting career going back to the late 90s. She has like 150 acting credits. Where I had remembered her from is from the HBO series The Newsroom, where she played Maggie, one of the leads on that show, which is actually a pretty good show for a couple seasons, but it only lasted 3 seasons and isn't all that well known. The director, Michael Dowse, also Canadian, hasn't done a whole lot, probably best known for his films Take Me Home Tonight, It's All Gone, Pete Tong, and of course the Canadian indie classic Fubar.
I was just going to say, the first two sounded like they were porns, and then you ended up like Fubar.
Fubar. Fubar was filmed in Calgary, actually.
Is Tango and Cash in it? Then I'm interested.
No. I don't know if there's a Tango and Cash reference in it. It is as low budget as it gets. Okay? I think they filmed that. They filmed that for like $40 on like a flip phone. That's how low budget that movie is.
That's how they got the title.
That's how they got the title. Yeah, exactly. A little amusing cameo by George Larac in this film here. It's kind of fun to see him there throwing down. So
yeah, it was interesting. I mean, it's good to see some actual NHLers get involved. I wish there were actually a little bit more.
Yeah, it would have been neat to see a few more, some cameos from some more NHLers, but you also want to be able to populate your movie with people who can act. And it's kind of like the reverse situation, like you said, like you see like Emilio Estevez on skates, and it's like, okay, this guy can't skate, and they got to like pull away. If you put an NHL, like it'd be the same thing in reverse.
Well, so you just get Dougie. You can do everything.
Yeah, he could definitely do everything there. He can look old, is what he can do on camera now.
It's true. He's aged poorly.
You know what he could do? He could probably get body checked and have an actor end his career. He could do that really well. In his first scene, his first cut, boom, just a hip check to the top of the thigh, and he's out of the movie, gone.
That's hilarious.
And Liev Schreiber as Ross the Boss. It's a little more than a cameo here, but an important role. I always like this guy in movies. He brings a lot of gravitas to the role, chews up scenery, and just looks like an all-around badass. You can really believe him as some hockey enforcer. So that was kind of fun to see. Anyway, any thoughts before we go the blow by blow here?
Couple things. I mean, Sean William Scott. Yeah, I'm with you too. I haven't seen American Pie in forever, since it probably came out. I remember him in that movie, enjoyed him in that movie. I would not go anywhere near the sequels, but I did like him in The Rundown. And I think that's one movie I do enjoy him in, with him and The Rock. And that's probably The Rock's best movie, in my opinion.
I was just going to bring up The Rundown. Yeah. I also enjoyed him in that role. And yeah, that is for sure The Rock's best role. Best movie anyway.
Yeah. And then, what is it, Jay Baruchel, you mentioned?
Yeah.
I have no idea how to pronounce that name, but yeah, he's a hockey nut in real life. So, from what I know, unfortunately, he's a Habs fan, I believe, but can't hold it against him.
Nobody's perfect.
Nobody's perfect, yeah.
He could be a Canucks fan.
Yeah, he could be a Canucks fan. I've seen him in probably some other Seth Rogen stuff. I think there was one movie I did like him in. It was the movie with Alice Eve, and he was trying to win her over or something, and that was a good movie. It was more of a love comedy type of movie there. That's the only thing I believe I've liked him in. Everything else, he's kind of played this annoying, whiny character.
Yeah.
I'm iffy on him. I think the only actor here that I do enjoy, and it's not a guy who gets a lot of great parts or a lot of parts, but I don't know how you pronounce his name, but I think it's Liev Schreiber. I think it went Lou Schreiber. Is that what you said? Lou Schreiber?
No.
Liev. Yeah, Liev Schreiber.
I looked it up. I don't know for sure if that's right. I always thought it was Liv, but I think it's Liev.
What was the Die Hard one? Live? What was it?
Live Free.
Oh, yeah, Live Free.
Live Free or Die Schreiber.
Yeah. There you go.
That's not bad.
That's not bad. That's pretty good. I think that's what he should be known for. So, in this movie especially. But yeah, I agree with you. He was the star of this movie. Whenever he was on screen, your attention was just focused on him. I believed him in this character all the way. Like, he was intense.
Yeah, he was intense. Yeah. And very believable. Yeah, he stole every scene he was in. No question.
No, that's it for the trivia.
All right, well, let's roll in here. We'll kind of cover off Act 1 here, which sort of goes all the way up to his recruitment to the Halifax Highlanders, the East, whatever, the semi-pro team that he ends up playing for. So we get the opening, we get a little hockey business, we get an introduction to Doug here. And I think that's kind of the main feature of the first act is meeting Doug and meeting Doug's family. But let's talk about Doug himself. Character. We get sort of a montage of him as a bouncer and clearly a really good-natured guy, but just a big dumb grin on his face here. So what were your initial thoughts? We know we're going to be with Doug through the whole movie here. Is this a character that you expected? Did you find him endearing or annoying?
I initially found him endearing, but they kept playing the same card throughout the movie of just being this dumb, naive, innocent guy he calls himself stupid, but he's very uncomfortable, but he's very innocent, I would say, or earnest. I don't know what the right word is, but that's all you got from him throughout the whole movie. There are moments where, obviously, when he steps up for his team, which we'll get into later, but initial scenes, I did like him. I don't know if I would continue with that sentiment throughout the whole film, though.
I thought it was a bit of an unexpected take. I was expecting more of a kind of a dick, having known and know a lot of hockey players. Usually they're assholes. So to get this character who's just like a sort of a genuine, smiling guy wasn't what I expected to see, having not known anything about the movie going in. So it was kind of a pleasant surprise. He's got that dumb smile on his face, which works really well for the character. But let's talk about Doug's family, which obviously plays an important role. We have Eugene Levy as dad here. I find Eugene Levy somewhat tiresome, also an American Pie alum, among many other things, of course.
He plays the same role, essentially, in every movie, or everything he's in, right?
Yeah, Eugene Levy doesn't stray. He doesn't color outside the lines at all, and that's probably for the best. I've never been a huge fan of his. I mean, he's obviously had a very long and successful career, and he's okay. He can be funny, but the stern dad role is just, I don't know, he's like the Canadian Robert De Niro now. Like, he's Canada's dad. Like, it's kind of
he's Canada's dad, I guess. It's kind of unfortunate now that I'm thinking about it. I'm just looking up in the ceiling saying, oh boy, is he really Canada's dad?
I think he is. I mean, William Shatner's like Canada's great-grandfather at this point because the guy's like 150. You know, I want to wait another 20 years and then Ryan Reynolds can be Canada's dad, and that'll be fine by me.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds or Gosling or how about Keanu?
Keanu's not Canadian though, so it doesn't count.
He's not Canadian? I thought he's Canadian.
Who, Keanu? No.
I thought he just grew up in Canada.
I thought he grew up in a computer simulation, and I'm not talking about the Matrix.
Maybe.
That's a robot.
He is a robot. No, yeah, I don't know who else to peg as Canada's dad. So
it's definitely Eugene Levy. Anyway, just do some crossovers back around to the puck here. So Doug's family, so I just want you to weigh in a little bit here. We meet his parents, more his dad. His mom doesn't have much to play there. His brother, and clearly he is the misfit of the family here. He's the ugly duckling. So why don't you just weigh in here on that relationship there and what it's bringing to the film so far?
Well, it's kind of trope or cliche. I mean, we want some of the odds stacked against our protagonist, who's Doug here. So he's going to be at odds with his parents. He's going to be, as you said, the misfit or the black sheep of the family. I didn't find that there's much more here. I mean, they have a good scene later on, which I won't get into, but I also found that it doesn't go anywhere either. Mm-hmm. And I guess not really the point of the movie anyways. So he's just a guy who's alone, but he doesn't succumb to any peer pressure of not being who he is. And I think that's something that is admirable. People can look at that as someone as a role model, in a sense, in terms of who he is internally, what's his soul like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the relationship with the parents add to that, which is a good thing. But again, it's a trope, and there's not a lot of layers here. It's just, okay, my parents don't like what I do, and they don't support me, and then that's pretty much it.
It is a cliche. The parents don't approve of my lifestyle, and that's basically it. And it is a cliche. I do think it pays off well later, but we'll definitely get into that. So let's talk about Pat, his best friend, played by the aforementioned Jay Baruchel, a crude YouTubing, vlogging mess of a motherfucking human being. I found his jokes to be consistent with a person who was involved in hockey, but I hate to be like a prude or an old man about it. I found some of his humor a little bit crude and not quite in keeping with the good-natured feel of the film. Like some of these jokes are like they're kind of funny, but they don't. I don't know. The character feels a little bit out of place to be his friend, like friends with a guy like Doug.
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't know why these guys are friends. And this character, Pat, you said, annoyed the hell out of me. My wife likes Jay Baruchel in other movies, and again, I've liked him in one. I haven't seen him in too much stuff, but I didn't like him here. I found this to be too much. I agree with you. It was overly crude, and I don't know if you want to do a segue. I mean, I know that sports, whether we're talking about hockey, I don't think it's just related to hockey. I know locker rooms and sports teams are all talk about crude language. They throw phrases and words around which you just wouldn't utter anywhere else outside of hanging with your teammates, right?
Yeah.
And I'm actually finding that tiresome. It doesn't appeal to me as it used to when I was younger. And it's not because I'm a prude or that, I'm better than them or anything like that. It's just, it's time to grow up a little bit here and there. Like, we're not all 18-year-olds, even the people who are still saying this. So for me, it's a little tiresome, and I think it's just also because we play hockey, we're on the same team, we have teammates that are like this, some of them, not all of them. I just don't relate to this humor anymore as much as I used to, so I found it a bit annoying.
Yeah, I found it a bit annoying, and we'll come back to, I think you raised some good points that definitely want to revisit, so we'll come back to those points in a little bit, because I think there's a couple of other pieces that feed into it. The scene that sets everything off, where Pat takes Doug to this less than a minor league hockey game in a tiny little stadium there, but they're still all watching, paying money to go see a bunch of grown drunks play hockey, if you can call it that. After heckling and the fucking guy climbing into the stands, and Doug just beats the goddamn shit out of this guy. I was actually shocked at the amount of blood that they chose to use in the film for the fight scenes. It was great. It was good. It was funny for some reason, and I hate to say that violence is funny, but that's exactly what they're playing the violence for here. Is Doug's got a hard head and fist of steel, and he just crushes this hockey player in the face, and it was funny. It was good. It was a good opening there, I think, the good introduction to the sport.
Yeah, it's like the Ty Domi thing with fan. It's the reverse of it. Or actually, it's like Mike Milbury, actually, isn't it? It's like it goes out in the stands and starts hitting a guy with a shoe. With a shoe, yeah. Hits the guy with the shoe. Yeah, classic. I think that's what they should have done here, is that the guy grabs somebody's shoe and tries to hit him, and then Doug starts punching him. That would have been a good gag, for sure. Yeah, because anyone who knows hockey, then they would understand that joke. Yeah. Missed opportunity, but I did enjoy these scenes, but I know it's a movie, and the coach has this guy in the stands is beating up this other player. I want to bring him onto my team? Really? Yeah. I mean, yeah. When does this happen ever? I know it's a movie, but we got to have some sense of reality here. Yeah, exactly. I think they wanted to have the Goon and have a guy who really couldn't play hockey, but it was hard to reconcile those two things. It's like, well, if he's a hockey player, he'd know how to play hockey and be the Goon, or they wanted him to suck. So I think they were just like, fuck it, we're just going to do it this way, and that's what they did. So there you go. Yeah, it's a reach for sure. Well, this is taking place in Canada. Not a lot of white male adults do not know how to skate. Like, they all know how to skate. So this is most of them. I don't want to put a stereotype out there, but the odds of this guy... No, they're not in Canada yet. They're in the States. They're in the States here? At the start, yeah. Oh, okay. They are in the States here. Yeah. So, yeah. Probably, he looked like he had never seen a hockey game before. Oh, yeah, he's probably rubbing nuts with a baseball, but whatever. Probably is, yeah. I did like the following where Jay's interviewing him on his stupid YouTube internet show or whatever the fuck it is. Not because of the crude jokes that were going on there, but because when they asked him, like, do you like hot dogs? And he's like, I do like hot dogs, but I like corn dogs even better because the whole fun is wrapped around. That's a good joke because, like, it's earnest, it's clean, and it feeds that character. And that was actually a really good laugh, as opposed to the buddies, like, winning 50 dicks joke, which I laughed at, but... This was okay, but it still wasn't funny, but it was more of amusing. Yeah. Because, again, you're trying to go back into, he's so naive that he doesn't even know what this guy is about to roll into a nasty sexual joke. And the guy's leading him into a trap. He can't even figure it out. He goes, oh, yeah, I love hot dogs. And then he goes into the other thing. But the problem here is, again, I already got a sense of that before, getting it now, and it's going to continue through the whole movie. I just don't know how much more I could stomach of him being this stupid or naive or innocent. It's sweet, but I don't know if I bought it. I don't know if it worked.
He's kind of a cartoon character. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of layers. He doesn't have a lot of depth to his, well, depth isn't the right word. He doesn't have a lot of breadth to his personality. He doesn't have a lot going on. He is this very simple, like this guy needs to be in an assisted living situation, just above that. He's just so naive and dumb. It's kind of hard to believe that a person like this exists. It's funny and it's sweet, but yeah, it's like, oh, okay, this is all we got. But yeah, if you scratch the surface of this guy, you just get more surface. So Doug does get recruited onto this team, and after beating the shit out of several losers here, he gets basically called up to the minors, because he's not even playing in the minors here, sent to the Halifax Highlanders, which would be in a league that would be the equivalent of like the third tier professional level in North America, which I believe is what the original story is based on. So let's talk about some of these fucking characters on the Highlanders. Obviously, he's there to protect the flame out, LaFlame, the French-Canadian kid who got rocked by Ross the Boss 3 years ago, and his career has spun out since.
That was an awesome hit.
Oh, man, he blew him up.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about the... Well, yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your thoughts.
No, I insist.
Oh, I was going to say, and then there was even the McSorley incident where he...
Oh, yeah.
He took the stick, hit Brashear behind the head or whatever.
Yeah, the two-hander with the stick behind the head. Yeah, ooh, that's nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, McSorley never played another game.
Guy needs to get worked.
Yeah. Well, he probably has severe brain damage, so he's been worked.
That's not enough. I hate that guy. Fuck.
The guy probably has memory problems. He probably doesn't even remember it. He probably wakes up with headaches every day, wondering where he is.
As he's falling asleep in a pile of money in his bed next to a bunch of naked ladies, and he wakes up. Who am I?
You can't do anything with that money or those naked ladies.
You could pay somebody to watch, right?
You could pay somebody to watch him writhe in agony as the CTE just slowly rots his brain.
That'd be a nice reality show.
I'd love to watch that.
Guy with CTE, and you just watch him rot.
Watch him rot until he shoots himself into the chest so that they can donate his brain to science. Yeah. Sounds like a great reality show. Man, this got dark fucking quick.
That's hockey.
That's hockey. It escalates like that. Yeah. You think you're having a nice, friendly game, and the next thing you know, you are punching some dude in the ball sack. So these characters on the Highlanders here, I like the goalie. Such an asshole, and everybody keeps fucking with him. And like, rule number one of hockey is you don't fuck with your goalie. And they didn't give a shit. They just were fucking with this guy. Those two Russians especially.
Oh, yeah. I didn't mind these jokes. Like, this is okay for a sportsman. A guy ribbing, even though they were all sexual jokes. This is acceptable to me.
You see, I felt the opposite.
Really?
Yeah, I felt it was along the same lines as Pat's jokes. And here's where I wanted to save it. And this is why I think is that what maybe they were going for it, but I didn't read it, is that there is a real thing as locker room talk. And yeah, there are things that people say when they're hanging out with the boys that you just would not be repeated and should not be repeated elsewhere. Otherwise, some people will be going to jail. But there is, at least hopefully, and on good teams, there is a warmth and good-naturedness to some of that ribbing. Like, we're all buddies and we're just horsing around and nobody's made to feel like a piece of shit. That's on good teams. I'm sure it happens on other teams where that's not the case. But the idea is that, like, that's on a real team. And these guys, maybe that's the point, is because they're not a real good team, but they felt like they were real jerks. They felt really cold to me. Like, the humor felt really cold. These jokes felt like these guys are being dicks about it. I don't like them. And they never really I don't felt the Russian brothers there got any redemption in the film. Like, they were just jerks now, and they seem to just be jerks at the end.
Well, maybe that's Canada versus Russia right there. They didn't want to give them redemption.
Lost in translation. Yeah, exactly. We're gonna have a couple of Russian losers in this movie. And then what are we gonna do?
Nothing. That's it. They stay Russian losers.
Fuck them. And we gave them girls' names. Fuck them twice.
No, but going back to your point, I think that whether you didn't interpret it this way, but I do, I think it's meant to be that they are completely cold and a shit team. No one's gelling. No one's getting... It's crap. When Doug enters that locker room, it is a gong show.
Yep.
And then they sort of develop. So I think that's how I took it. I don't think that what these guys were doing, like, messing around with the helmet and making fun of his mom and all of the other, whatever they said and all those kind of things, I don't think that's a stretch above anything that we've seen in other sport movies when people are ribbing another, whether it's acceptable or not. This is sports. This is what people do. They talk about even, what's that thing? Oh, fuck. I can't think of the word now. It's not the initiation. What is it called? They said they were going to do something. Hazing. So they said they were going to haze somebody, or haze Doug later. I don't think they ever did. But hazing's not acceptable, but it's a reality in sports and in teams, even now. Even though it's frowned upon, and there's massive penalties and suspensions and all those kind of things, people can get fired. That shit still happens now. As sad as it is, it's something that we have to accept in sports. It's not acceptable, but you have to accept it. I don't know.
So we have to accept it even though it's unacceptable. It sounds like some Captain Kirk word foo that you're trying to pull. I mean, I'm not a computer, dude. You can't make me short circuit by your faulty logic.
I tried. Damn it.
And now that I kind of think back on it, I guess if you're going to be a goalie and you're going to put pictures of your mom in your helmet,
you almost deserve it. You deserve it at that point.
You were asking for it. Like, seriously.
Like, doesn't Mike Smith have pictures of his kids on his helmet?
Yeah, well, that's different. You don't make fun of someone's kids. Everybody knows that's off limits. But, like, everybody's made a your mama joke.
I don't know. I think the Edmonton Oilers, knowing what's going on in those lockers,
speaking of CTE and massive amounts of cocaine. But anyway, I find that the second act kind of plods along. They play a game. They don't do so well. Doug beats somebody up, fires the crowd, sort of goes along like that. But he meets this girl, Ava, who is a puck bunny. Let's get your thoughts on...
I like the term, puck bunny.
Puck bunny, yeah. Let's get your thoughts on Ava here. It's
hard to put my finger on what to say. I mean, yeah, she is a slut, sleeps around. Don't want to use that term.
But herself anyway.
Yeah, she admits it, so I'm not afraid to say it, because she comes out clean, saying she just sleeps around. She's attracted to hockey players. That's all she's good for. I don't know what else to really say about her. I think that she's... And again, this kind of maybe comes back to the point of how is hockey being represented here because of the vulgarity? Because she's used to vulgar hockey players. Here comes naive, earnest Doug playing the innocent, and truthfully innocent, like he's genuine, and that's different for her. And then she falls for that. So she's got a little taste of it. She says, okay, this is different, this is interesting, but I can't be a part of this because she's with another guy and lives this lifestyle, but then he wins her over eventually, right? So I don't think that there's a lot of depth here. I think it's more of a statement of how is this movie representing hockey? What's the commentary here? That's what I took away from it.
Well,
she's so used to the vulgarity.
Yeah, she's used to the vulgarity, but obviously it turns her on to some point. Otherwise, she wouldn't be around these dudes. Doug is borderline Forrest Gump around this girl.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
he is.
You got a pretty name, and your face is so pretty. It was funny, but this was a bit much for him. Yeah. He's still a person who has his own place and, like, pays bills. Like, he's not going to say stupid things like that. So I didn't really care for his behavior. I really liked her, Alison Pill. She's cute as a button, and her performance here really won me over, and I was really disappointed with the character that they gave her to play. She's such a sweetheart.
I have the same feeling.
You know what I mean? Like, she's so sweet, and yet she's like, oh yeah, I'm a huge slut. I get horny all the time, and I sleep around. I'm like, now listen, if that's who you are and that's what you want to do, that's your business. Good for you. That's nobody's business, and like that, nobody should be judged for wanting to have sex with just a bunch of people. That is perfectly fucking fine. What I didn't like about it is, well, there's two layers. One, she's kind of ashamed of it because she has a boyfriend, I guess. But even if she didn't, I think she would still be ashamed of it. And two, that's her character. There is nothing else about her character that we ever find out about. She is only defined by the fact that she is a self-proclaimed slut and she likes to fuck around with hockeys. And that's it. That's all she's given to do. The one female character in this movie is there because she's a slut. And just because she says she's a slut, yeah, there's nothing else there. Just because she admits it and is ashamed of it doesn't mean that it's all right to create a character like this. So I was really put off by it. And she was such a gamer about it because she was so sweet. This movie came out in 2011. It's a different world now, but I didn't dig it.
I don't mind that a character is like that because honestly, man, I mean, I know we're in a different world now and I don't want to be all political about it, but I mean, there are people like that out there.
No, I'm not saying that there aren't.
We just can't close our eyes to it. Just there's no other layers here. If there's other layers to the character and she still wants to be a slut, great.
No, that's what I mean. There are other layers to the character. If there are other things about her and she's a slut, like, fine. Like, I don't care. I don't care about the fact that she likes to sleep around. I care about the fact that's the only thing we're given about that character is her complete definition.
And I agree. In addition, though, the only way I believe their relationship is the fact that Doug is so different than what I'm assuming, especially because, as I said, the way the movie's portraying everybody else. Because you see everyone at the bars and, hey, man, from the shit I've read in hockey books and stories and all that stuff's true. Guys going to bars, sleeping around, forking girdles at the bars, doing lines of coke, getting drunk at 3 a.m. We still see that shit now. Talk to jokes about the Edmonton Oilers. Fuck, man. That's what they're doing. Even the Flames, I've heard shit. These guys are doing it too. Maybe that's helping them gel. I don't know. So that's all real. But I mean, the problem, the only reason I believe any part of their relationship is because Doug's so different than every one of those other guys.
That's completely true. I totally agree with you on that one. Like, that part works for me. That totally hits. I just wish they'd given her a little bit more than just being that.
Exactly. I also didn't buy their chemistry either. They had, like, she sold it okay. Like, her performance was okay. I just didn't feel the charm. Like, there's an innocence charm there to the relationship, but it's just, it wasn't directed, it wasn't the acting, just the direction in those scenes. There just wasn't enough to make me believe that they'd be a couple.
Yeah, it was almost like watching like a couple of 13-year-olds like going on their first date.
Yeah, very awkward.
And maybe it's very awkward. So as we roll through the second act here, I mean, there's some hockey, the coach yells at the team, there's internal friction. It's kind of the standard sports stuff here, but we kind of get down to where we know the Highlanders, they go on their road trip. They need to win 2 games to make the playoffs. Similar situation to the replacements we talked about before. And Doug gets suspended for 1 game for just massacring that one dude. And he's walking by that coffee shop and he runs into Ross the boss. And this reminded me of the coffee shop scene in Heat with Al Pacino.
The lesser extent of it, but yeah, I can see it. Yeah. I can see it.
Like the 2 rivals, the 2 enemies, like they're meeting, and I don't know. I thought this scene was really good because, again, Doug's being himself. He's deferential, really polite, really sweet. He's like, oh man, like, this is such great honor. And credit to Ross, he's being a nice guy about it, but is eventually like, we ever see each other again, I'm pretty much going to kill you. So I think that was a good, important scene. You see the torch being passed a little bit. But it was sort of a fun little interlude because it was nice to see that the next game after that where Doug's forced to watch and Russ is just running over everybody on the ice there. So that set up some good amount of tension. So I like that closeout of the second act.
I agree. I think that them meeting in the coffee shop was one of the scenes of the movie, in my opinion. And again, Liev Schreiber, he carried that scene completely. And I like the fact that he says, no matter what, you have my respect. Because he sees that Doug is a genuine tough guy. Like, he's the real deal. I think he said that a couple of times. I know you're the real deal in terms of being a goon, but that's all you are is a goon. And I want to bring that up later in the end about goons and hockey players. But I loved this scene because I also feel that it touches a certain point to the game's state of like where we are with goons in today's game as well. And then he says, all they want is for you to bleed. And then he gives the impression that they're a fading commodity in the game, which is true to today's game as well. And I felt that's one of the better underlying themes represented in the movie. Even though it wasn't obvious, that was one of my takeaways.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And we'll definitely have got some notes here. We'll come back to that. And I think the last sort of significant point here took place was his dinner with his brother and his parents there after he scores his first goal, deflection off his ass. And this is where the earlier scene pays off, where, I mean, obviously he's the misfit and he's really happy and proud of himself. And they just like, well, what are you going to give up this hobby? This isn't what a man's supposed to do. Definitely a sad scene there where his parents are like blowing him off. But what I did like is that at the end of it all, he didn't reconcile with them.
Yeah, I made a simple point here. They never reconciled, like, say, at the end of the last game or they're in the stands cheering him on and all that stuff. I found that interesting, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I liked that because it felt to me that his journey was about finding his own passion for himself. Like he said a few times, like, I don't have a thing, right? I don't have a thing. And now he's found his thing, and it's for him. And it doesn't matter. Obviously, you can see he's crushed that his parents don't approve. They're not proud of him. They think it's dumb. But the fact that he doesn't reconcile with them later means that it didn't matter anyway because it was for him anyway. So I really like that. I thought that was good. Like more cliche type of traditional sports movie would have had him reconcile with mom and dad, and they would have been there cheering when they won the big game and stuff. And none of that was there. It wasn't about that at all. I thought it was great. Cut them out, they're gone.
Yeah, they're gone. You don't see him for the rest of the movie. And I actually want to give props here to Sean William Scott because I bought him in these scenes because he was saying in Doug Platt, in his character, still being the naive, innocent guy.
Glatt with the G.
Glatt. But just him being genuinely, as you said, heartbroken and desperate for some kind of approval or acknowledgement from his parents because he's saying, I'm part of a team. If they need me to bleed, I'll bleed. But I'm doing something with my life and you should be proud. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was, not that it moved me, but I could see it being moving. Like, I wasn't having the feels, but it is true. It is soulful, and I really enjoyed those scenes here.
Yeah, it was played well, I think. Yeah, he did a good job here.
Yeah.
So let's move into the third act here. So LaFlamme, who should be the star, he gets demoted. Doug gets promoted to alternate captain, and that throws a big wedge in their relationship. And LaFlamme blows up on Doug and tell him the same thing, like, you're just a goon. Like, I got the skill, I play hockey, you don't got shit, you're just a bum. And they have this blow up. And what I found really sweet about Doug, and as we've kind of talked, he's a bit one note in how they portray him. But I think this is where that pays off, is that at the end, that's who he is to his core. And even though this dude just told him to fuck off, he's been a total douche, Doug says no matter what, he'll still always have his back. And I thought that was sweet. That was a very hockey thing to do. That felt really true to the spirit of the hockey players, as crude as hockey players are, as despicable as they can be off the ice to people when it comes to their teammates and on the ice. Like, no matter what, they usually all kind of have their teammates' backs, and that's what's one of the endearing parts of hockey. So that was good. I thought that played well. But it all kind of comes down to the big game. They need to win what is their last game of the season in order to make the playoffs. And
was it that this game or the game before? It was the game before where he stops the puck with his face.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, it was the game before. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, that's right. He takes one for the team here. Big time.
Yeah. What'd you think of that?
Ooh. Oh, man, that was brutal. So first of all, it was a bit of a bullshit situation because they're up by a goal. There's, 35 seconds left.
Wasn't he on the PK as well? He was.
Yeah, they were killing a penalty.
They were killing a penalty, and I wrote it down. Why did they put him out on the penalty kill?
Yeah, that's just not something you would.
No. So that was unbelievable, but it was just to set up the scene.
Exactly. It was to set up the scene. If he had been stuck on the ice, there was that scene in that game where he comes out of the box and then stays on the ice and gets danced on and they score a goal. Like, that situation makes more sense. Like, he comes out of the box and is stuck on the ice. That would have been a better situation as opposed to like, hey, get out there, Doug. It's like, no, dude, you've got 30 seconds. You're up by a goal. You don't put your goon out on the ice at that point of the game. You don't need him to kill anybody. Like, no, that's stupid. But yeah, that.
That was awesome. I agree with you. It was like, whew, oh man. I was just surprised. Like, honestly, that is all your teeth are gone there, man. I don't know how he had teeth left. I think he lost one. He lost one.
He lost one tooth there, and probably a good third of his brain cells in that situation. Like, he got fucked up because then they kept hacking at him afterwards.
Yeah.
Right.
But I get that shows character, right? I mean, that shows who he is, what he's doing to help the team, and it's a good scene. But yeah, it's like, oh man. But I guess this just shows me it's another thing. It's like what hockey players do to me, which are above and beyond any other sports. Like those guys, I know football's tough. Obviously, you get hit all the time. There's no denying the damage that's done to those bodies as well. But to me, hockey, it's even worse. These guys take it to a whole other level.
Yeah, it's a totally different level. They're not soccer players. Like, you wouldn't see a soccer player sacrificing his body.
No, he would have dove the other way, away from the net and away from the puck, and still he'll claim he lost all his...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what he would have done. Yeah. Like, if the breeze from that puck hit one of a soccer player's hairs, that guy would have been out fucking cold, down the corner, clutching every body part. Like,
no, he'd genuinely be dead.
Yeah, he would be dead. It would have killed him. Would have killed him and sent his stupid soccer soul to the farthest depths of hell, because that's where soccer players go when they die. Fuck you.
I actually like playing soccer for fun. Man, I cannot abide these soccer players.
Playing is fun, but yeah, I agree. I cannot abide.
Yeah, these guys are absolute trash.
They are trash.
These soccer players are the Harvey Weinstein sports. That's who.
Yeah, that is exactly who they are. Yeah, they're the lowest of the low. It is a fun game to play.
Yes, it is.
Actually, most sports are fun to play, be honest. That's why we play them. They're fun. They're games. Games are fun. Hockey's just better.
Yeah, the thing that's nice about soccer, it's just accessible to everybody.
100%. Yeah, you don't need to be rich to play soccer. You need to have a few dollars in the bank. Well, your parents have to have a few dollars in the bank for you to be playing hockey as a kid. It's not easy. Anyway, yeah, so that was pretty gruesome. And I thought that was going to be it for him, but he's at the bar after the game. And that is also a testament to a hockey player, because hockey players get the fuck back up even when they should. They do. Like, that's why that's such a problem. This is just one man's opinion, and it's not backed by any scientific evidence at all. But I think part of the problem with concussions and lingering damage in hockey, I can't speak for other sports because I don't watch any other sport as much like I watch hockey. But at least in hockey, players get up. They play hurt. They play with broken bones in their hands. They play with broken ankles. They play with broken feet. They play with separated shoulders. They play with fucking stitches in their face and blood oozing out. Like, not in the movies. Like, they play with these kinds of injuries. You get a puck in the face, go to the dressing room, they give you 20 stitches, and that guy's on the fucking bench for the next shift sometimes. Hockey players get back up and play even when they probably should not, especially in the case of head injuries, but also in cases of broken bones or pulled muscles or severed tendons. They're tough motherfuckers.
They are definitely the toughest of the toughest, but I think it's a bit of an unfair comparison. I mean, other sports, their guys play through injuries too. I wouldn't say to the extent of hockey players, but they do it.
I disagree. They suck. Sorry. You're incorrect. No, obviously, that's true of every sport. Guys do play injured, but I think there's a different level there, I think. Like, football players don't play with separated shoulder. You couldn't. Well, you could. Well, you couldn't.
It's different, too, because you're going to get hit, and then it depends on your position. You're going to get hit the next shift if you go back out there. It's not like hockey where I could play and try and avoid a hit if I had to. Whereas in football, you could also then, as if you're a defensive linebacker, I mean, geez, if you've got a busted knee and you can't stand up, the quarterback is toast the next shift, right? So there's a bit of a different story there, too. And they only have 16 games to play. So I don't know. It's different, yet the same. I hear what you're saying, and I agree. Hockey players are the toughest of the bunch. Easy.
They are the toughest. Yeah, easily. All right, well, let's circle back around here. Let's go back to the final game, and Ross turns out to be kind of a real douche. He keeps baits him into that fight, but he doesn't fight, so he gets a penalty.
I love that, though. And I loved Shriver's laugh. He was like, that, not maniacal laugh, but just that chuckle. Like, I gotcha.
And he makes that good play there. He assists on a goal and skates by the bench and gives him a little how do you do there.
And I like that other one where he's skating by the bench and he does that fake out where he's going to hack him. He goes, ah!
Yeah.
You remember that one? I love that.
I thought it was great because I've seen guys do that in hockey games and you hate that motherfucker so much. It works. It gets you off your game. Like, all right, kill that guy. You shouldn't be thinking about killing that guy. You should think about playing the game. So it was a good little character addition there. I think it worked really well.
I want to point out, because we talked about this before, is Schreiber could skate.
I was going to say.
You see wide shots of him actually skating. So I appreciated that.
Yeah, well, I think he's from like Eastern Europe. So if you want to talk about white dudes in Canada growing up being able to skate, this dude probably had to skate to get away from the Nazis.
I was going to say those guys have to probably skate to work, but you took it too.
He's not that old, of course, to have to skate away from Nazis. His mother's from Poland and Russia, Eastern Europe. I don't know. I'm just looking at IMDb, okay? I don't know what to tell you. But his mom's from Poland, Russia, and his father's upper-class Protestant. Okay, I don't know what that means, but I know what it means, but it doesn't mean anything.
It means they can afford him to buy them some skates.
Yeah, definitely. They needed them because they had to skate away from the commie.
Yeah, and they can skate too.
Yeah, can they ever? Oh, boy. Red Army? Fuck, those guys could move.
Oh, yeah.
He's a big boy, too. He's 6'3". He's a big dude. If he wanted to punch me, I would just hit the dirt.
Oh, yeah,
like
for
a soccer player.
I'd probably take it, but then I'd stay down. I'd take the one saying I got punched by Schreiber.
Yeah.
I just would not get back up. Even if I could, I probably couldn't, but even if I could, I'd just say, okay, I had enough.
Yeah, definitely. Finally do get into a brawl, and oof, man, it is a gruesome affair. Again, a little bit unbelievable. I did like the part where after Ross knocks down Doug, and the linesman's going to come in, he's like, don't you fucking dare. I'm like, okay, problem. Linesman just sort of backs off. That would never happen, but I bought it coming from him. It was very threatening.
Oh, yeah.
The fight, I found the hockey fights generally were fairly believable in the context of hockey fights. Like, guys are a little bit off balance, grabbing onto each other's jerseys. They're not these huge choreographed affairs. They're just grabbing a hold and multiple shots. That's how a hockey fight usually goes down, and then a guy gets thrown down to the ice. That's what happens. But they did a good job of portraying some of the weight of these punches. What happened to his fucking ankle? Like, I know it looked like it got chopped off in the game before.
Yeah, I don't know. It just looked like because he's not that great on his skates, he just rolled it and it broke. I don't know. I was confused too. It just felt like they just obviously wanted to give him something that he had to overcome again.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was necessary.
Like the Karate Kid, right? Where he's on one leg, basically.
Yeah. I wanted the coach to like take him to the side and do like that hand thing. He's rubbing it. And you get the music.
Yeah, the Mr. Miyagi thing. He does the thing where he rubs it, but he puts his hands on his crotch instead. Because he's a hockey coach. Oof.
Oh, man. I hope Sheldon Kennedy is not listening to this podcast.
Oh, boy. Might have to edit that out. I think it's still too soon.
Not for Fleury.
No, well, I don't want to get killed either. So, speaking of crazy people. So, anyway, I like Fleury. He can play some hockey.
And needs to get worked. And
crazy motherfucker.
And he did. So,
he did get worked.
No comment.
He didn't get worked any harder than what he did to himself. But
what comes around goes around. That's all I got to say about that guy.
Hey, he's a Stanley Cup champion and an Olympic gold medalist.
And he was integral.
Anyway, moving on. So that kind of brings us to the end of Act 3. So Doug is done. He's in the dressing room, broken and bleeding from every orifice. Gets on a hot streak, scores a natural hat trick in the third period to win the game. We don't actually get to see the final seconds of the game because Doug is in the dressing room with Eva. And that's it. He's accomplished his task. He protected the star, got him to get his confidence back. He found his place in the universe. And everybody lives. Even Ross the boss had a smile at the end before he spit out his tooth in what would presumably be his last game. Everybody lives happily ever after. That is Goon. So any final thoughts? I got some discussion points here, but anything you want to bring up first?
Yeah, I'll talk about certain things in the movie here quickly, just especially with the end. I mean, I did like the fight between Ross and Doug here. I thought it was good. I wish it was just, we had some different angles on the fight, because it just looked like a couple of POV shots. And they were just going back and forth, and I wish they kind of staged it a little bit more where they were kind of swinging around a little bit more, like almost like a real hockey fight, or even if you wanted to just do those straight jabs, just you had some different camera angles there. I thought it was just a bit of a lost opportunity, but overall a good fight. I think it was too much with the ankle break there. I didn't think it was necessary, but I did like that he got back up and gave him that nice left hook there to knock him out, and I did like that. Kind of it comes full circle because you didn't talk about it. The opening title card has the blood spurting and splattering all over the ice with the tooth falling. You don't know what that is. You just think, oh, Goon, so it's just some guy who fought and that's just representative of a hockey fight. But it's actually comes full circle and it's Doug's blood. I mean, Ross's blood, Ross's tooth that's falling. I like that. And I did like the laugh that Shriver gives there at the end, that smile. I thought that was appropriate because, again, he was surprised, but he was kind of happy that, yeah, that guy took him out legitimately. He wasn't like a sore loser after the fact, and I appreciated that. He could have just been like getting up and swearing and something else, but he just accepted it, and I like that. So to me, that was appreciated. He didn't mention anything about the guy stepping on the logo, and not the logo in the dressing room.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, before they had those overhead views of the team, all the team except Doug stepping on the logo, and then you see everyone starting to not step on it, and then finally LaFlemme doesn't step on it, and that's signifying the team's coming together and they all believe and they're all together. But I did notice before they even started that the first time we see them in the locker room, guys were walking all over that logo, and I was like that, and I was like, no, what is this bullshit? Immediately. And I wrote it down and with big capital letters, what the fuck? Logo. I did appreciate the fact that they were highlighting that as part, and that's not a hockey thing, that's a sports thing all around. I think it was pretty funny. I remember there was kind of a bit of a controversy. Fucking Justin Bieber, I think he went to the Chicago Blackhawks locker room, and there's video of this on YouTube where it was like an all-star game or he got invited in a locker room or something along those lines, and he stepped on their logo. And the guys were all pissed off. They're going, what? I love that. That was great.
And Biebs is Canadian, too, so you think he should have fucking known fucking better.
He should have been dropped right there on the ground.
To be fair to not just him and everybody else, but don't put it on the fucking floor. You know what I mean? You don't want people to walk on it.
Well, no.
Why is it on the ground?
No, why not? You walk around it. That's your logo. It doesn't matter.
Well, hang it in the middle of the room. Yeah, I get it. Like, you don't walk on the logo.
No, but this is not a small, rectangular room. All dressing rooms, especially when you have logos in the ground, they're all big circular. It's just like when we were in the Hockey Canada room. You don't walk on that shit. Everyone's got the space. You got your space. You walk around it.
It just seems odd. If you don't want somebody to walk on something, then I wouldn't put it on the ground. That's just me. It's like if I didn't want you to sit on it and take a shit on it, I wouldn't put it on the toilet.
I find
I wouldn't put it in the one place. If I didn't want you to do a thing to a thing, I wouldn't put it in the one place that's meant for just that thing.
What the fuck?
The floor is for walking on, and there's nothing else for the floor to be there for other than to be walked on. So if I have something I don't want to be walked on, the first thing I'm thinking is, you know what? I'm going to put this on the floor.
Are you telling me if I put our team logo, I printed it out, I put it in the dressing room, you would walk on it?
I would not walk on it because I know you're not supposed to, and that would be silly. But why would you put it on the ground if you don't want it to be walked on? If you don't want it to be walked on and it's not supposed to be walked on, then you wouldn't put it on the floor.
Yeah, but...
Then don't put it on the floor. Like, avoid the situation is what I'm saying. It's like, I'm going to drive down the wrong side of the road. Don't hit me. Don't drive on the wrong side of the road.
I'm shocked and appalled by this behavior.
I'm not saying that you should hit me, but I'm just saying that maybe the responsibility is on a different party. Don't walk on the logo, ladies and gentlemen, but maybe don't put the logo there in the first place. That's a fair point. I got to admit.
I'm not disputing the point, but it's reality. You don't walk on it, and you accept it. This is sports.
No, you do.
But no,
but it's not acceptable.
But to me, it's a tradition.
You accept it, but it's unacceptable.
I will get you one day with my circular logic.
With your word foo.
Word food. Yes, that's about it. I just wanted to mention another thing. You didn't talk about the coach at all. You have any comments on him? How did he handle situations?
Yeah.
You were iffy? He didn't care?
He was a dick, and coaches usually are, so I guess that fits. I didn't like how he demoted LaFlame and promoted Doug in the same breath. I mean, it seemed to work, but it doesn't seem to me like that is a thing. I don't know. That seems like an old school, like John Tortorella coaching move.
I was just going to say, he's like Tortorella.
Yeah, he is kind of like Torts, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
But not as insane.
No, I'd rather take this guy over Tortorella any day of the week.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the fuck's wrong with Tortorella. That guy should not be around anybody. Just the abuse.
Well,
it's way over the line.
He's actually managed to hold down a job for the past several seasons, which is impressive. No, the coach was sort of a non-starter. I mean, he was there, but he was sort of a placeholder for me. I mean, he was a pretty standard hockey coach. You know, yelled a lot, told guys they sucked when they sucked, said good job, boys, when they did a good job, and that was kind of the extent of it for me.
I actually liked this guy. I'm surprised.
Actually, you know what? I liked the other coach, the minor league coach.
Oh, that guy was a bum.
He was a bum, and he was hilarious. Drawing the picture of that wolf that he named Loopy. That was so good.
So you just wanted like an indifferent coach. I think we've seen that before, though.
Well,
in
sure,
many sports movies.
Before,
just, the guy who doesn't give a fuck, right? He's there drinking or drawing pictures of wolves or who knows.
Well, he was idiosyncratic. It's not so much that he didn't give a fuck. He was just odd, and I just liked him better. I don't know that I would have wanted him to be my coach for the whole movie because that's more of a screwball situation, right?
Correct. That's screwball sports comedy.
Yeah, and that's not what we're here for. So I guess it makes more sense to have the cliche hard-nosed type of coach. He's not really anything here. Like, he's just what he is, which is a hockey coach. And that's fine.
I actually liked it. I actually liked that scene where he demotes LaFlame or whatever his name is and promotes Doug. I like that scene. Like, this guy's completely checked out to the point where he needs to be embarrassed. And if you give a guy a certain amount of chances in the pro leagues, I'm not talking about minor leagues or house leagues or beer leagues or whatever. This is the pros or semi-pros. You need to get your act together. You get enough chances. You're not buying into anything. So you need to wake up. You need to get embarrassed. I believe in that tactic. So I like that scene. If I was a coach in that position.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure this guy has had like a billion private conversations behind closed doors. Yeah. So I can believe that based on the way that the movie is telling me here. Yeah. He is just checked out completely. And you can see he actually doesn't care. He's getting high. He's coked up. He's coming into the games. He's not even trying. He's not doing anything. Sometimes that has to happen.
Yeah, he needed a kick in the ass. That is true. That's fair enough. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I'll agree with you on that one.
Okay.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut sometimes, right?
I'll take it when I see it.
So let's talk about a couple things here. I find that one of the problems with filming a hockey movie is that it is got to be almost impossible to choreograph and film a hockey scene for the camera. Football, baseball, like you could probably choreograph that in CG where the ball goes. Like that's got to be easy enough to fake for the film. But hockey, I can't imagine how that.
Well, it's too fast.
Too fast and too much going on.
I agree.
Okay, good. Next point. So, how were they? Like, I mean, there wasn't a lot of that in this, but...
Well, especially at the end. I actually wanted to bring this up, the direction on the hockey scenes themselves, because most hockey movies that we see, they don't capture the game appropriately, like the beautifulness of it, the gracefulness of it, and actually having good enough angle to capture not just the action, like a hit or whatever it is, but like say if a guy's going to go through some guys and score some goals, it's either way too far away or it's way too fucking tight and you see guys, the puck in the gates and you don't see everything else, or see a guy's face only, and it's just like, oh, fuck that shit. I actually liked some of the way this was filmed here. Especially with the phlegm when he was doing some of those coast-to-coast deeks, when he was finally got his mojo back. I actually found that this is one of the better hockey movies showing hockey in action, whether it was the hits or the goals. My only complaint was a couple of the fight scenes. I think they could have gotten a bit wider. They should have done something. They had some good shots, but then do something with a bit more variety on the fight scenes. The hockey itself, I actually liked.
Yeah, I think you're right on there. There wasn't a lot of hockey, but they did a good job. I mean, and they didn't shy away from showing some like skill, some creative plays. Like some of the plays that he pulled on the ice there were really slick, but they are things that you see in hockey games, and you don't usually get that in a film. Like it's usually just some guys skating. You see a puck getting passed. You don't see blue lines or guys trying to stay on side. Like they thought they put in a lot of those little details. I think that showed a real love for the game, and it must have been hard to do. Like, oh man. Could you imagine how many takes it would take to make it look good, to make it look believable, and to edit it properly? That must have been a huge undertaking. Small budget Canadian movie like that, the work it must have taken.
I respect the way the hockey scenes were shot here.
Yeah. So let's talk about, and you brought it up a little bit, about the sort of the state of hockey itself and the commentary on this type of player, on the Goon, fighter, the enforcer. I mean, this movie came out was filmed in 2011, came out early 2012, and the game continues to evolve from this point. So what's going on here? What does this movie have to say about this type of player in the game?
Well, even though Doug's kind of replacing Ross here, one of the underlying tones, as I mentioned before, is that they're almost being phased out, like he's a dinosaur. His team appreciates him, but they know he's retiring, so they're kind of getting rid of him. But the funny thing is, this movie also says that guys like this are needed to have the back of, say, the smaller or more skilled individuals. So I'm not sure it actually falls on a certain line. I don't really know which position this movie, to me, if I had to say, it says obviously it's the movie's Goon. I would say that it's making a hard line suggesting that the Goons are needed, but then says that in reality they're being phased out, which is where we are in today's game, where they are being phased out. The skilled players are all big enough now that they can almost take care of themselves. Look at Alex Ovechkin right now as a good example. That guy can do everything, and no one needs to have his back. He's going to run guys down himself. He'll drop the gloves, even though he's Russian. I've seen it happen. He doesn't fight all the time, but he has fought. He's a tough motherfucker, man. And I think you'll find that with a lot of the other skilled guys now, too. You don't see a lot of guys under 6 feet playing pro. These guys are all big boys now. I don't see a lot of guys who are Goons in today's game. In fact, I don't think I could, except for Tom Wilson. And again, he's even scoring.
But he can play. Yeah,
but he can play. I don't really see who is just there as a Goon in today's game.
You're right. Like the tough guys can score, can play, and the skilled players can stand up for themselves. Like Ovechkin, he's like 6'3". He's like 225 pounds. Even if you wanted to take liberties with that guy, you're taking your life in your hands.
Well, he'll run you over.
He'll fucking kill you. Yeah, he'll run you over. Even if you wanted to cheat, you couldn't. Like he's too big, he's too strong, he's too fast. Like you don't try to take a liberty with a guy who's twice your size. Like you just don't do it. And there aren't that many little guys. There are guys. I think there are more smaller guys today than there have been. I mean, I haven't seen the data on that, but because there are fewer guys who you have to be able to play now. Like it used to be, you could, if you were big and you were going to fight, you could get in the league. Like those guys, you just can't put them out on the ice anymore. You're a liability. So you don't really have the dedicated Goon because you can't afford to have that on the ice. So if you can't afford to have that on the ice, then maybe it's easier to have smaller guys because there isn't anybody who really wants to try to take advantage of them. I don't know. It's definitely a different game. But I agree. Like, what's the movie saying about that? They seem to be saying that the Goon is kind of necessary because it was one of the storylines here was LaFlame getting his mojo back, getting his confidence back after getting rocked that time. He had no protection. Now he's got somebody who has his back. But I think that, at least I hope that's more about not somebody who has his back physically, like is going to beat guys up. It's something, the team that's there for him. Nobody was ever there for him. Because I like physicality in the game. I can do without fighting, and I don't like to see lumbering towers of meat just out there to beat guys up.
I was going to ask, where's your stance on this then? So then you just said it. You would prefer to have the more skilled game, and you don't care for the fighting.
I don't care for a huge frequency of fighting. I don't mind the occasional one, but if it was gone completely, I wouldn't miss it because to me, I want to see the skilled game. And what I think is great, like right now, is hockey's really fast. It's still very physical, but it's all about the skill and the speed now. And it's more fun to watch than it was when it was more about physicality and like big lumbering teams bruising their way through the league. Like, because that game's kind of played after the whistles, and that's no fun. I want to see like guys who have to work hard, make good plays, have a good move. I don't need to see a guy punch a guy's face off. Like once in a while, all right, is it entertaining? Yeah, it is entertaining, but that's not the game. That's kind of a byproduct of it. And every now and then it's fine. What's your opinion?
I'm the opposite. I miss it. I miss the 70s and 80s way of playing the game. I agree, it's more skilled now. The guys are more skilled now. It's fun to watch. I want a nice, even balance of both. I'm not saying I want guys who are cheap shotting and giving the Scott Stevens flying elbows to the face and the head. I don't need that. I'm not saying I need a goon. I prefer to have a skilled guy who could fight. But if you're saying you would take fighting off the tables and you wouldn't miss it, I would miss it. I think the game needs it. I'm one of those old school guys who feels that if fighting isn't there, I think we are the one sport that has a weapon in our hand at all times. And man, if fighting isn't there, I just feel that you'll get more injuries. There'll be more problems. There'll be more like Sorleys hitting for shears. I just think that's, as you said, it's a byproduct of the game, but because we're so fast, so physical, I think fighting is needed in hockey. So to me, it's a necessity. Well, so if you take it away, this is a necessary argument when we're talking about the movie Goon, but it's not something I think we're going to resolve on this podcast.
Well, we're not going to resolve it. When I say I wouldn't miss it, I don't think that it should be completely outlawed, like you're kicked out of the game if you fight. Because if that was the case, then I think what you're saying, I think that would be true. Then there would be more injuries, there'd be more liberties, there'd be more stick work. In the way that it is right now, where it sort of self-polices itself, like you can't afford to have guys who are just fighters in the game because they'll just get burned. They get scored on, and teams can't afford that. So I think it's sort of self-equalized now. And then if guys need to go fight, the other night there was, I can't remember who was playing, but there were two skilled guys who dropped the gloves and had a little tussle. And that's great. Like, I think that's better. Like when two guys who are there to play hockey and they fight, that's better than having some lumbering bozo who doesn't do anything else. If the skilled guys want to fight, great. I like it when the skilled guys go and fight. That's fine. I don't like the 70s and 80s because it was just a fucking free-for-all.
I miss the free-for-all. I want a bench-clearing brawl once in a while. I want Hextall versus Potvin again. I want Hextall versus Roy again.
I didn't mind the goalie fights. Those were kind of fun. But you didn't know what the hell was going on at any given night. Like, it was just pandemonium. And it's fun here and there, but like for 82 games in a season, I don't know. I want to see a hockey game and the pandemonium and like the craziness and like the huge differential in skill level between you got these bozos on the ice not doing anything, and then you got these skilled guys who are just doing all this crazy shit. Like, I don't know.
I agree with you about the bozos who can't play and they're just there to fight. I don't need that anymore. But I just kind of miss a little bit more of physicality, and I feel that the rules. And maybe it's because the athletes are more strong and they're more bigger and the game's faster. Maybe it's also the equipment as well. There's a lot of studies saying that hockey equipment is more tougher instead of softer. So at that speed and that impact, if some guy is going to take a shoulder to the chest or shoulder to the chin or shoulder into the other shoulder, I mean, now those pads also can cause some damage. They add to the damage now.
Yeah, they have those the hard plastic caps on the shoulders and the elbows and stuff now.
Yeah, so I mean, you had soft pads.
I don't know that those are harder than a bone.
No, I think it adds to the problem. Look at the fucking elbow pads now, man. If you take a headshot with those elbow pads now, those things are fucking pointy, hard plastic. Guys.
But maybe don't take a headshot with your elbow might be the solution to that problem.
No, but yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? But I mean, injuries are generally down.
In terms of headshot injuries, because they're policing it, yes. But I'm just saying that I miss a little bit because of the rules changes that have happened in the last decade. And obviously what we know now about concussions and the damages to that, and it's easier to spot, and we have concussion protocols in sports now. I feel that some of the game has been a bit more handcuffed, a little bit of the freedom. I don't see the hits that I used to see, the clean hits. I don't want a guy getting hit from behind on purpose when he's going for an icing.
The clean stuff.
I'm talking about the clean stuff. I miss that. I just feel that people are scared to play that game as much. You still see it rarely. You still see some okay hits here and there, but they're all so down. I don't know.
Ended guys' careers, though, that stuff.
From an old school guy, I'm not old, but I miss 70s and 80s hockey. Like, I didn't watch hockey in the 70s, but I see all the highlights. I've seen games on YouTube and stuff. Like, I miss some of those kind of hits.
Was it worth it, though, do you think?
I don't know.
Like, there's guys who were, like, skilled guys whose careers were ended way before they should have been because of that kind of stuff. That was legal and on clean hits.
I wouldn't say clean hits. Most of the shit's dirty hits, man. Like, look at what happened with Korea.
Korea was dirty.
Kevin Stevens. Oh, yeah, Korea's like Scott Stevens was a complete elbow.
Oh, but when Scott Stevens blew up Eric Lindros, that was a clean hit.
Can't remember.
But it was clean, like that, pretty much. That was it, right? That is his career. I mean, he played after that, but not.
Well, that's also karma.
I won't disagree with you on the karma factor there, right? But it's like that was considered at the time. That was a perfectly legal, clean hit. Even the Korea hit at the time.
Yeah, at the time it's clean.
But
that's a fucking elbow. That was a headshot.
Okay. It was a headshot, but at the time.
No, so that's what I'm trying to say. Outlaw those, police those kind of hits, especially what we know now from concussion protocol. Those have to be massive suspensions. Though you have to ban those hits and hits from behind and shit like that. And knee on knee or sticking your leg out and all that kind of crap. I'm just saying that because we are a little bit away from how we used to play. I don't know. I just don't find the energetic hits that I used to. That could turn a hockey game around. To me, that's what I miss. I'm not missing dirty plays, dirty hits. I'm just missing the big hits and the big fights that resulted those. Because a game can turn around. I've seen so many games, my favorite games when I was growing up, turn around just from a great hit, which led to a fight or a great fight. And you see less of it now, and I feel that it's just missing. It's just an aspect of the game that I miss a little bit. I'm not saying a lot, but a little bit. But I don't miss the dedicated goon. Now, have your skilled guys. They're all big, they're all tough, they can all fight, but I just miss that aspect of it. That's all I'm saying.
Let's come back, and I'm going to put in my last discussion point on the film here. Was it funny?
No. I mean, I chuckled at a couple of scenes, but overall, it's a no. This movie was not funny. I could see how people would view it as funny, especially people who love sports or playing sports. They can relate to some of this stuff, but as I mentioned, for me, it's a bit too juvenile and crude. And I don't mind crude. It was just overly crude. It just wouldn't stop. It was relentless.
Yeah. Kind of a product of the times, the Seth Rogen era of comedy. Where like regular guys are telling jokes that comedians are writing for them. Doesn't feel honest, doesn't feel genuine. And I mean, some of the jokes are funny, but yeah, overall, I mean, I laughed here and there. What I did appreciate about it is that it wasn't like the other type of comedy that we get nowadays. And I feel like, I don't want to take a dump on this movie, so please no, I didn't like it, but I don't want anybody to get the wrong idea. But like the new Ghostbusters movie that came out, a couple of years ago with the all-female remake. And that movie sucked, by the way. And it didn't suck because it had all women in it. It sucked because it was poorly written and poorly directed.
You shouldn't be ashamed. You don't need to make a disclaimer. I don't want anyone thinking
I just don't want anybody to get the wrong idea.
I'll fully say it. I don't give a fuck. The movie sucked. They sucked. It all sucked.
The movie sucks. I actually like the idea of the gender reversal in a movie. I think that'd be interesting, but like the movie was terrible. The movie was fucking awful. But the style of humor that they do there, where they just sort of like talk awkwardly at each other for the whole movie and say the stuff that's totally out of character because they're just ad-libbing, so they're not the character, they're themselves as the comedian selves doing lines. This wasn't that type of comedy, because I hate that type of comedy. We're not talking about Ghostbusters, but fuck, we're going to talk about Ghostbusters. The reason the original one worked is because they weren't riffing, they weren't doing a bit. They played their characters, and those characters sometimes made jokes and sometimes were in funny situations, and that character in that story was funny because it was funny a situation and they were good comedic actors. Whereas the new one, they were their characters until they were trying to be funny, and then they were just their comedian selves on stage doing a bit, and it didn't make any sense.
Exactly. So there's a difference there.
Right. There's a difference.
You had actors doing comedy, were good at what they were doing, versus comedians who aren't good actors doing bits. That's the difference there.
In this movie, they weren't doing bits, so I appreciated that. So it wasn't like I'm trying to do a joke a minute, except maybe Jay Baruchel was doing that a little bit. But like Sean William Scott's not a comedian. He's an actor. He's a comedic actor, but he's not trying to do a bit every time. Like Liv Schreiber is not trying to do a bit, and Alison Pill's not trying to do a bit. Like they're just in the movie, doing the movie honestly. There actually isn't a lot of comedy here.
Well, I was going to say, you're asking me, did I laugh? Where was the comedy except for the crudeness of Jay Baruchel or how the hockey players were treating each other in the locker room for the first time you see them?
Yeah.
There's no comedy in the movie.
No, there isn't really. I think maybe that might have been a good thing because the type of comedy they were utilizing when they were utilizing it would have been too much. Like it's better as sort of a feel good sports type of movie as opposed to a sports comedy. That makes sense. We talked about The Replacement. It's actually a very funny movie, and I guess you would have to call it a comedy, but they're not trying to do a bunch of jokes all the time. Like the characters are kind of funny. They're put in sort of silly situations, and then you laugh, but it's more like feel good as opposed to here's some jokes, laugh because it's a comedy.
I agree.
Yeah, so that was my last point there. So why don't we wrap this up here? Why don't you tell me what your final thoughts are? Give me your recommendation, and is this a rare antiquity?
Before we do that, I do have one last question for you. And I think maybe we touched on it a little bit. When we talk about sports, I mean, you could relate it to any sports, but, when we think of hockey, I mean, you touched on this. There was a good moment where you felt like Laflamme, when he was kind of yelling at Doug and calling him a goon, and he just felt like he wanted someone to have his back. It didn't necessarily mean that a guy had to beat somebody up. He just wanted to have somebody who was with him. And Doug's kind of that guy. But we see this movie, and it's just about a guy punching each other, and there's a commentary about goons are required in hockey. How do you think this represents our sport? Not with respect to where fighting is in today's sport, but just our sport of hockey, along with the foul language, the vulgarity, because part of our game is also that respect that a player has for their opponent as well, right? Where to draw the line, the brotherhood of a good team, a close team, if they're close, and everyone has each other's back. Do you feel this movie represented our sport, or at least our favorite sport, well?
No, I'd say mixed.
Yeah,
I'd say mixed. Yeah. I guess the reason for that is a lot of the positives are there. The camaraderie eventually comes along. Hockey's a game like it's all teamwork or it's nothing. Like you have the best player in the world and your team to be garbage. In fact, that's exactly what happens right now in the NHL. You need to have good teamwork, and I think this movie speaks to that. Like you need to have that. You need to have guys who will stand up for each other. But it also doesn't make any apologies for the crudeness, the treatment of this poor young woman who was complicit in it, for sure, Eva. But these guys are crude, they're jerks, and it doesn't redeem any of the poor qualities. So maybe it shows it honestly. I don't know, because it doesn't try to redeem any of the bad things that happen in this sport. It does show some of the grace and beauty of the game. It shows some of the physicality of the game. So maybe it's an honest portrayal of the sport. Not entirely flattering and not entirely unflattering. I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, I'm mixed as well. I couldn't tell which way, as I said, the direction of the hockey scenes. We got some of that gracefulness. We got some aspect of sportsmanship and what a leader should be and what sports should be and closeness, brotherhood, friendship. I don't know. But it also drops the ball a little bit too, because this is not all what hockey is. And I also felt that some of the vulgarity turned me off because I know that sports can be this way. I just felt that it painted our sport in such a negative light with that vulgarity. And that was a bit of a turnoff because I don't think that's an honest portrayal. I think it's a semi-honest portrayal.
Yeah,
it can happen, but it's not all that. And if someone who's not a hockey fan says this is what hockey's like, I felt that's a bit of because you don't get that. You don't find a lot of that with baseball. You'll find that in a screwball comedy, but say in an honest baseball or football movie, yeah, you'll get guys swearing at each other and maybe have some locker room conflict. But are you going to get this kind of vulgarity in one of those classic sports movies?
No.
Yeah, you don't get that. But here we got that. I felt that we don't get a lot of good hockey movies out there. And this seemed to be one that was hitting a lot of people's radar, whether they were hockey fans or non-hockey fans. A lot of people were talking about Goon back when it was released, at least that I remember. And you mentioned there was one person who said this is the best sports movie they've ever seen. But I mean, were they attracted to this vulgarity as a result of it? Because I don't think that was an honest portrayal.
Yeah, it wasn't a dishonest portrayal either. It was maybe just a portrayal. It needed to be a little bit more. I think that these characters needed a little bit more to be humanized a little bit more. They need to be warmed up a little bit more to be like to endear themselves to us. Because it's not everybody's like that. Usually the joshing in the locker room is more good natured. There's vulgarity, there's no question, but does it go to that place all the time? No, and the movie, so they're pushing it. Hey, it's mixed. I think it's mixed.
Yeah, that's all I want to say. So I guess I'll roll into my final thoughts here. Continuing with the notion of mixed. I mean, I'm mixed on this film. I'm not as connected to our protagonist as I would like to be, that being Doug. I wish there was just something more with this character that was just, instead of a dumb, innocent, naive hockey player who has a good soul and a good heart, he wants to do right and finds his place being a goon and helping his team out. I just felt that there needed to be something more there, and I can't isolate what that should be. And his relationship with Eva I didn't find a lot of interesting things there either. I didn't really, I'm not saying I didn't buy the relationship, because as I said, he represented something different than she was used to, so that I could see a reason for her wanting to be with Doug, but just there was nothing else to that relationship or to that character who's Eva. The characters themselves, I was a little bit disappointed in. The only character I really did enjoy was Liev Schreiber's Ross Ray character, and I thought he was the star of the show, and he was in it for all of 5 minutes. What does that say about the movie? Jay Barrett, he was annoying as fuck. He was too vulgar for my taste. So when your characters aren't strong or aren't that likable, there's a problem with the movie. And story obviously is a very simple story. So if your characters are not strong, your story is very simple, it's hard to really get invested in this. Saying that, however, good hockey movies are of the rare commodity. So we touched on the hockey scenes. I loved how the scenes were directed. We did get a better sense of how hockey is portrayed with its beauty and grace. So I did like that. I loved some of the fighting scenes. I did like the gore and the blood. It was exaggerated for sure, but for me it fit the tone of the movie. And I thought it brought up a couple of interesting points, but it didn't really draw a line on where it stands. That in today's NHL fighting, the need for a goon is not there. They're going the way of the dodo, which is true, but the movie says that goons are required. So it's kind of a conflicting message in a sense, but it doesn't really draw a hard line. So was it funny as well as a comedy? I would say no. We touched on that, so that's another problem. I do want to say one thing though. I love the last line of the movie. It did put a smile on my face, and I did get a chuckle. Probably the only real chuckle I had from Doug through the whole movie is I love what he says, I think I nailed him.
Yeah, that's good.
And then it cuts to credits. And to me, that is a great ending and a great line. And I think that was one of Doug's better moments, except for when he was defending himself to his parents and disheartened because of their rejection of his profession. Not a lot else going on here. And to me, that was a bit of a disappointment. To me, it's not a rare antiquity. Unfortunately, I think hockey deserves a better movie portrayed on the big screen. Again, I haven't seen Miracle. I hear that's good. I think I should watch that as a hockey fan. But for me, yeah, I can't see this as rare antiquity. Is it a recommend? Yikes. Fine line. I'd probably say borderline recommend, simply for the fact that don't have a lot of good hockey movies, and there are some good hockey scenes in here, but it's not a strong recommend, not in the least. I could have gone into a bare not recommend either. It's right on that line, so it's hard for me to say, but if I had to say it, I'd say a bare minimal recommend, and a bit of a disappointment. I was hoping for more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I enjoyed Sean William Scott as Doug Glatt. I know that you really didn't dig the one-note nature of his character. I really found his childlike innocence endearing in the contrast with how he was in the ice. It's totally unbelievable type of character, like the gentle giant to the extreme, but I don't know, he's just got such a $1 million smile. It won me over. Alison Pill, like I said, she was a button. She was endearing as well. Some good hockey scenes, but maybe some mixed messages, and the hockey's good, but there's not a whole lot going on here. Like, there's some good stuff here, but it is, I think, maybe a little overly simplistic. From a cinematic perspective, there's not much to discuss here. Cinematography, direction, all of that stuff is just capable, as I suppose it would be in a movie like this, which is fine. So for me, I mean, I'd recommend it. I think it's an entertaining watch. Ultimately forgettable, perhaps, not a rare antiquity. For me, there isn't anything here to elevate this above the norm. So if you dig hockey and you don't mind a light movie that doesn't suck, yeah, for sure, you definitely check it out. I think it'd be entertained, but probably nothing special to write home about here. So we'll ring the buzzer and throw the green light on for Goon. Thanks for doing this with me, Harry. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, we've got a milestone next time. So what's up for episode 50?
Well, yeah, we're going into triple overtime, I guess. Or we may go into more overtime periods in the next episode. Who knows? We're hitting episode 50, our biggest milestone to date yet. Past episode 0, of course. That's going to be a dandy, in the epic words of Bob Cole.
Oh, baby.
Oh, baby.
Oh, golly.
Oh, golly.
Oh, baby, golly.
So we don't know exactly what we're going to do yet. Well, we're going to be doing something special. We haven't tied it down. Usually surprise each other, Geoff, but I think we've been talking about this. Got a couple of ideas that we'll have to run by each other, and then it'll just be a surprise for our anxious listeners out there to see what's coming next.
I'm sure all of them will be shocked. 100% shock ratio among our fans.
At this stage, yes. That's what it is. Episode 50, next time.
All right, man. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, can't wait. Should be a fun one if we can come up with some ideas.
Yeah, episode 49 will be the last episode. Can't think of fucking 50.
Yeah, there's the risk there. It's also.
Yeah, that's it. So.
Well, if that's the case, you go fuck yourself. So.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, you'll see what happens.
Anyways, man, take it easy. I'll see you next time.
All right, see you next time.